Come on, everyone, now get into your places. You heard her. Into your places now. We're coming. I'm
Coming.
coming. Oh, look at my place, Anna. Tessa.
Ah!
I'm so sorry, Tessa. You better be Leo.
Careful next time.
Here. You're watching Clovers and Honey AG. Enjoy the video. Hello, I'm Clovers and Honey AG. If you're new here, hello. If you're back, hello again, I guess. Now, in today's video, I will be giving you an in-depth view on all my opinions about American Girl brand. So basically, you'll be seeing my opinions and why I have those opinions. Now, to really understand what I'm going to be talking about in this video, you first need to understand what American Girl brand is. But before I talk about that, I just thought that you should know that when referring to the brand, I will be saying American Girl brand, but when talking about the dolls, I will be saying American Girl. So, what is American Girl brand? Well, American Girl brand is this brand of 18-inch dolls. As you see right here, this is a photo that I took of my Truly Me 61. I will later, after this segment, I will be talking about Truly Me and like all of American Girl's lines and what I think about them. But right now, we're talking about American Girl brand as its whole. Now, American Girl brand is a brand that produces 18-inch dolls that, as of this video's filming, cost anywhere from $115, the usual price, to $150 if you buy the original historicals limited time edition. So if you buy them, it's $150, but the usual cost is $115. Now, American Girl brand has gotten into a lot of controversies over the years, especially because they've been around since like the 80s. So, you know, they've gone through a lot of controversies, and this is why I'll be talking about all my opinions on not just the dolls, but the brand itself and all their controversies. And I'll talk about how American Girl brand could improve its business model, its overall quality, and generally just its controversy. I'll also be talking about the fandom, if you will. I'm part of the fandom. I'm a little obsessed, if you will. I have many dolls, 15 of them, as right now. So I'm a little obsessed, and I know a lot about the fandom. Alright, so right now I'll be talking about the history of American Girl brand. So it actually has a pretty rich history, and so let's get right into that. So it was founded in May of 1986 by Pleasant Rowland. So Pleasant Rowland is her own little thing. She no longer owns or controls American Girl brand because when it was bought sometime in the 90s or early 2000s, it was purchased by Mattel, and Mattel now has full ownership of it all. The original dolls consisted of historical dolls that went from time period to time period, consisting of mostly of pre-1950s. There were a couple of 1940s dolls, but there were no 1950s until Mary Ellen came out, which was done by Mattel. And their stories, you know, they talked about child labor, child abuse, poverty, racism, slavery, animal abuse, and war. And these dolls were written in a way that little kids could understand such important topics, which is really just a superpower. And I think like how powerful these original dolls' stories were are really a reason why many doll collectors prefer Pleasant Company over the current American Girl brand. But that is not necessarily my opinion. This is just the wide variety of most people that I talk to and have seen. But back to Pleasant Company. In 1994, Pleasant Company released a line of contemporary dolls with only numbers that were called American Girl of Today, but then they were rebranded in 2006 to be named Just Like You. And then when American Girl had bought them, which was a little after, after American Girl had bought them in 2010, they changed it to My American Girl, and then in 2015 to Truly Me, which is, as of this video's filming, their current name. And this line currently includes like 90, almost 100 dolls, and like they keep growing. American Girl keeps coming up with these dolls. And yeah, and then a little earlier than that, before the Truly Me Just Like You product had been changed to Just Like You, they were still American Girl of Today, American Girl released this doll that was contemporary, only available for like a year, called Lindsay. And this is like kind of considered the pioneer of what is now called the Girl of the Year line. Now every year American Girl puts out this doll that is only available for a year and has a full story, a full name, full everything, but they're only available for a year. So, for example, in 2008, the Girl of the Year, who was only available for a year, was Mia St. Clair, and she liked to skate. And then, this is a little controversial for American Girl, that it was Marisol Luna in 2005, and she was a dancer, the original dancer. And the reason this is controversial is because there have been many dancers that were only available for a year. But there is this other line that people don't really like to talk about because there's a lot of controversy around that, and that is the so-called contemporary line. Now, this consists of Lindsay, technically, and two dolls called Z, and Tennie Grant and Logan, who was the best friend to Tennie Grant. And this was a little controversial because that Girl of the Year for that year, which was 2017-2018, was Gabriella Mcbride. And she's infamous for being the first Black American girl with a terribly done story. Where on the other hand, Tennie Grant was this overshadowed doll who was white with a really well brought out story and even brought back the best friend line, which I will talk about in a minute. So this is really controversial, and I'll be talking about why it's controversial and my stance on this in a little minute. Okay, and talking about Logan, I said that he brought back the American Girl best friend line, and you might be thinking, what is the best friend line? Well, the best friend line was this line of dolls that were secondary to the main dolls. And these dolls had their own storyline, their own names, but they weren't the main focus of the story. They had a little spice to the doll's life. They were friends, and you could buy the doll. But sometime in the 2010s, American Girl had unreleased them. They were no longer available, and they are mostly all considered very rare now. Okay, and there's one last thing I would like to talk about before really getting in depth about my opinions and all their scandals. So, American Girl / Pleasant Company, but actually American Girl used to come out with films. And these films were only for these dolls with names, such as the Girl of the Year line or the historical line, which consisted of the dolls that I first talking about racism and child abuse and that. And these films were on a lineup. One of the most famous, or the ones that comes to my mind when I first think about this, is American Girl, Grace Stirs Up Success. This isn't only because Olivia Rodrigo played the title role, but mostly because Grace has a really big job. Grace played a really big role in me and my sister's life, the doll and the character. But one of the other ones that very easily comes up in my mind is An American Girl, Krista Stands Strong. I remember watching that with my sister, but definitely the one that comes up right in close second or close third is Kit Kittredge and American Girl. I loved that movie, and that's just a few of the many, many films that American Girl used to come out with. Sadly, Leah Clark, Girl of the Year 2016, was the last film that American Girl has made to this day. Sometimes they make little short films, but the Leah Clark movie was the last full-length, feature film that American Girl has made. Now, I wanted to kick this whole thing off by talking about American Girl's brand's fandom. Now, obviously, when you think of fandom, you probably think of book fandoms or TV series fandoms, and fandoms can be toxic, and the American Girl brand fandom is no exception. Now, first I want to talk about AGTube. This is what you're watching this on. If you're watching this on YouTube, and you are currently on American Girl YouTube, shortened AGTube, and one of the most popular things on AGTube you'll find are American Girl stop motion, shortened to be called AGSMs. And so these talented people take their dolls and they move them bit by bit by bit, each frame, to make a film. And they make scripts, and I make stop motions. But these people, I'm very good at stop motions though, and these people, they take time out of their day but AGSMs aren't the only thing I'll find on AGTube. You can also find AG lifestyle videos, and those are mostly just people who take one photo of their doll, and maybe on a set, or they reuse an old photo that they took, and they'll put that as a background like you see here, and they'll talk about maybe their opinions on AG. They'll talk about current AG. They'll talk about AG related stuff, and that has a wide range. They're mostly opinion dumps, but you know, there are so many creative things that can come out of AG lifestyle videos. And that's, you know, and that is a big part of AGTube too, even though AGSMs make up the big majority of films and things done on AGTube. But you also don't only see these opinion dumps. You can also see photo contests, which are a very popular thing on AGTube, especially after the big hotshot photo contest, which was called AG&DM, just finished because the person went to college. There's a bunch of competition to be the next big photo contest, so a lot of people are opening up these Cycle 1 photo contests to try and be the next big thing, and like photo contests are considered AG lifestyle, but I wanted to put them as a different thing because they're so important and they can really help bring together AGTube and photography, which is what I'll talk about next, because on Instagram there's a whole thing called AGIG, where American Girl collectors alike combine and take their photos. Alright, and now it's time to talk about AGIG. AGIG is American Girl Instagram, and people on American Girl Instagram have maybe hundreds of dolls. And, you know, they take photos with professional or unprofessional cameras, and then they post them, and other AGIGers bond over those photos, and you can make many good friends on AGIG. But obviously, this thing doesn't come with its downsides. There's a lot of tea that can happen on AGIG, and, you know, sometimes it really isn't a safe place because it's on Instagram. And even though you can get many more friends through AGIG, it still has its downsides, just like AG2. But, you know, other than that, it's really just a good place to bond over photography and share your photography. And many people do start out on AGTube, and it's for a lot younger of an audience, frankly. And AGIG, because its Instagram has a more, you know, older and more mature audience, for the most part. And, you know, that's the thing, the fandom can be toxic like most fandoms, but it's still a great place to bond over AG dolls and American Girl brand alike, even if sometimes the fandom me can, you know, diss what we fandomize over. And now it's time for the good part, aka what you've all been waiting for the past 13 minutes. My opinions. Now, I'm gonna start by not starting the general opinion. I'm gonna start with little tiny things, such as my opinions on Tennie and Logan. I've already given you my opinion on the fandom a little. My opinions on Tennie and Logan. My opinions on, you know, just a lot of more close things. And then I'll end it by talking about the general opinion and their business marketing and all that. And then I'll give you the conclusion. And that is what this will look like. But first, I will be talking about Tennie and Logan. Okay, Tennie and Logan. Who are they? Are they dolls? Are they people? And I'll tell you, Tennie and Logan are dolls who were contemporary characters who came out in the year of the years, plural, of 2017 to 2018. And they were contemporary. They were there for a limited time. I actually own Tennie, and they're controversial for pretty good reasons. The first reason is that they're another white doll to the seemingly endless abyss of white dolls that American Girl brand has come out with. And AGIGers and AGTubers alike have speculated that Tennie was supposed to be the Girl of the Year of 2017, but American Girl realized really late that they couldn't do that. They would face severe backlash if they were to do that. So they threw together what is now known as Girl of the Year 2017, Gabriella Mcbride. She was another dancer doll. She had a speech impediment, but they never really talked about that. It's just points for diversity, but they never really used that. And Logan. Oh my god, Logan. Logan has a face mold called the Kaya mold. And Kaya is this doll that is indigenous and has a feminine face mold. And using that for a masculine character, a boy, was really not a good step for AG, and they faced severe backlash through that. And even though I was happy to see that they were adding the best friend character back, I wasn't really happy about the whole boy doll thing and the whole Kaya mold fact. But, I mean, the fact that, like, their story and the fact that they're another white doll to the endless abyss of white dolls American Girl has, they're actually pretty nice dolls. I find Tennie pretty appealing. She's actually really cute and is one of my comfort dolls. Even though she does look like truly me 24, or just like you 24, she still has a whole, like, a place in my heart, even though I hate Logan. Like, these dolls are controversial for a good reason, but I myself still am a little biased because I like them and I own Tennie. Alright, now I know I said that I'd keep the business model for last, but I wanted to talk about American Girl brand's audience, whether it be their target audience or not. Like, I just wanted to talk about their demographic. And this is towards the AGIGers and AG YouTubers who are pushing for diversity. I stand with you. American Girl needs diversity, but I think these are a few reasons that I think are why American Girl can't have as much diversity as we want them to have. Now, I'm gonna face backlash for this. It's inevitable, but look around at your nearest American Girl store. How many Asian little girls do you see there? How many black little girls do you see there? How many Latina little girls do you see there? Not very many. How many white girls do you see there? With their white moms who are possibly Karens. You see many. And these white moms are probably all Republicans who are racist and transphobic and homophobic. So, this is their main demographic. This is where most of their money comes from. And if they were to do something that angers those parents, they'd lose all that income. And, like, I think that is one of the main reasons why American Girl is pushing for diversity for our sake, but they can't have as much diversity as we need and want them to have because they would lose all of that income. And us, we want diversity because we're people, but they, American Girl brand, they're a company. They care about income more than diversity. So they have to have more white dolls so that they keep most of their income, which is little racist little girls, I guess, that anger their parents. And if they were to say, this is a black trans lesbian doll, that would most likely anger most of their demographic, and American Girl brand would lose a lot of their income, even though their dolls are stupidly overpriced. And I think that is one of the main reasons why American Girl brand cannot have as much diversity as we are pushing for them. And I know I'm going to face backlash for this, but we need to accept it, and it's the hard truth. I don't think the chances of collectors being able to get a canon, like, LGBT doll are really low. But I think that we should be able to we should want to just make our own dolls with our own LGBT representation. And even though it'd be a huge thing for American Girl and us for them to have LGBT representation in a main character, because Kira, she has lesbian aunts. Great step for American Girl, but they're secondary characters. And one of them almost gets put in a hospital and dies, almost dies. I haven't watched the stop motion, so she might have, but this is a kids channel, so she probably won't. But she's put into a hospital, one of the lesbian aunts, and almost dies. And this is known as, I don't really know what it's known as, but it has a name, and that is basically when an author has like one or two gay characters and they both die, and all the other straight characters get to live. And you know, that is a small representation of that, but it's not really major. But basically, like, these are secondary characters. It's a huge step for American Girl, but I think we should be able to have a main character, like a best friend or an older brother an older brother or sister who's a very big part of the story, who is LGBT. Maybe, I think the chances of having a trans doll, even though it's a lot more controversial, if you will, I think our chances of having that are a lot higher than our chances of having a gay Girl of the Year or historical. So, yeah, those are the sad truth, and we need to accept that, and as much as I don't want to accept it, I just need to accept it, and we as a fandom, or community, need to also. But before I stop that, even though I almost stopped it, I just want to address, I know what you're thinking, but Addie is black, but 58 is black, but, 80 is black. Yes, but currently I'm talking about LGBT representation, which is what we were really pushing for in, January or February on AGIG. And I think we need to accept that. It's very low. The chances of us getting a canonically LGBT character from American Girl are very low. And even though having a black Girl of the Year character is amazing, the chances of us having a canon LGBT character are very low, and I'm not talking about diversity. Diversity is a must, and I don't think it will anger their demographic, but LGBT representation will most definitely anger their demographic, and I really think that the chances of us getting a canonically LGBT character are very low because of American Girl brand's demographic. Next thing I'm going to talk about, the diverse best friend problem. This really isn't a good thing, because I'm going to take Keira Bailey for example here. Her best friend is Alexis, and Alexis does get some screen time, but we never really get to see what her motivations are, and she's kind of just there for Keira Bailey, and Keira Bailey is another white, Josefina, blonde doll. No. And Alexis is, in the catalogs, an Asian, dark-skinned doll, but in the stop motion, she's still diverse, which really isn't a good thing, because there's a thing in movies, I don't know what it's called, but there's a thing when movies, the main protagonist or main character is white, and they have this diverse best friend who has no motivation and is just kind of there for the main character, and they have no motivation, no backstory, they're just there for plot convenience and diversity. And that's not a good thing, because your diverse characters need to have a plot line, and in the stop motions we get to see a little bit of Alexis's motivations, but not a lot. We get to see a lot more of Kira's motivations, which I understand because she's the main character, but I really think that catalog Alexis should have been the Girl of the Year because she's diverse, she's not LGBT, which I want, but we weren't gonna get. They've had an Asian Girl of the Year, and really I just think Alexis should have been the catalog Alexis should have been the Girl of the Year, and the fact that the diverse best friend who has lots of screen time and still doesn't get a lot of motivations is a problem, and they should really try to get that. And Sonali goes through character development, but we still don't really get to see why, and we don't see much of Sonali, and she's one of the only black characters in Krissa's, who's the Girl of the Year 2009, we don't get to see much of her motivation, and even though she's mostly really just there for Krissa, even though she does have some motivation, which is good, it's a step up from some movies, but she still needs more motivation than just, oh, sudden change of heart. What I'm trying to get at is American Girl's way of writing diverse best friends are better than some movies, but they still need to be better, and instead of having a diverse best friend with not a lot of motivation, they should have a white best friend with not a lot of motivation, and having the main character be a DOC, doll of color, with a lot of motivation. I just think that'd be nice, and while American Girl's writing of the diverse best friend is a lot better than some, it could still be a lot better than it is. Alright, I'm literally only on opinion 4, and this little video is already 25 minutes long. I need to stop. But anyways, I'm not gonna stop because I'm passionate about this and I want to make a long video. Okay, basically what I'm going to be talking about right now is Perma Panties. That was a pretty big scandal that American Girl went through in like 2016, 2017. Actually, more like just 2017. Now, if you don't know what Perma Panties are, Perma Panties were when underwears were sewn into the doll. Currently, and before the Perma Panties pandemic, or epidemic, whatever it's called, or Perma Panties scandal, these underwears on these dolls were removable. You could move them around. You could take them off and you could put them back on. But with Perma Panties, they were sewn on. You couldn't take them off, you couldn't put them on. They were sewn on, you couldn't take them off. They were just stuck there. And the reason people hate Perma Panties is because they give the doll no figure. They're just there. And a lot of people say that they take away from the doll's figure, and I have no dolls with Perma Panties, so I can't say much on this, but from what I do know, I think that for us, the collectors, Perma Panties are terrible. But from a child's perspective, aka American Girl's target demographic, Perma Panties are amazing because I have young neighbors who have many American Girl dolls who are in terrible condition, and also most of them don't even have their underwear anymore. Little kids lost their underwear, and you know there's this thing going around just cloth and vinyl, and I'm not saying that that dolls need to have underwear on, but you know I just think that Perma Panties were nice for little kids because they had no chances of losing those little pieces of underwear, which could just turn around any time in the house and could be kind of disturbing sometimes, I guess. In this little segment, I am going to be talking about American Girl's little diversity problem. And this is because American Girl has only 3 available Jess molds in the Truly Me line. And I think those are the only 3 Jess molds available throughout the whole entire store, out of the Best Friend line, which no longer is available, the Truly Me line, the Girl of the Year line, and the Historical line, which is 3 things available. There are only 1 line where Jess molds are available, and out of the 50 or 40 that are available from that line, only 3 are Jess molds. And I'm stressing the available here because American Girl has made maybe 6 or 7 Jess molds throughout that line. And that's still a problem because they have made 90 Truly Me's, and only like 10, maybe 6 or 7 are Jess molds, and that is a big problem because the Jess mold, if you don't know, is the Asian mold. That's the default Asian mold. And the fact that there are only 3 available Asian molds in a array of like 40 available dolls in this line is really saying something about American Girl's lack of diversity. And I'm stressing the Asian thing here because there are mostly white dolls, but there are definitely a lot more black dolls available than Latina and Asian dolls. And the reason that I'm stressing Asian for this little segment is because, you know, if you watch the news, Asian hate crimes have been on the rise with this pandemic, and with that, American Girl has come out with maybe 5? Maybe 10, no, about 5 new dolls over the pandemic. 5 new dolls in the Truly Me line. And none of them have been Jess molds. A couple of them have been Black, Latina, but none of them have been Jess molds. And when the Black Lives Matter movement was on the rise, they made a statement saying they would be working on diversity. Good for them, but still most of their dolls are white, and I understand that dolls take time to develop, but there are so many creations that you could make. Just look at people who have CYOs. Copy and paste from that, I guess. Anything to make your thing more diverse. And that leads me to my next segment, whitewashing CYOs. Now, okay, whitewashed CYOs, what I'm mostly talking about are Addie and Sonali molds who are white. Now, this doesn't count albino dolls. Albino Addie molds are completely fine, I enjoy them, but sometimes you have to specify them because their characteristics might make them look white. So most of the time because if you have an albino doll, you need to specify that they are albino if they have the Addie mold. But if you're straight up whitewashing the Addie mold through the CYO line, that is not correct. No, I don't quite want to talk about why because this isn't necessarily my space to talk about it, but generally, if you plan on whitewashing an Addie mold through the CYO line or Sonali mold, don't do it. I advise you not to. And even though the Kai mold isn't available, if the Kai mold was there, I also advise you to not whitewash that. And same goes, but you know, if you're having an albino doll, just make sure to specify. And I know that topic was short compared to all my other topics, but that brings me to my next segment. Drumroll please. The price of these new inbox dolls. Okay, if you haven't been collecting American Girl for long, basically, I got my first doll in 2012, and in that 2012 time range, these dolls were $75. Currently, they are $150 for most dolls. If you buy the exclusive new historicals, or old historicals that have been re-retired or unretired, they're $150. And these dolls are not worth that. They're not worth that. And like, they're just not worth that, period. And so that's really a big scandal because, you know, we're overpaying for these dolls. And these, like, obviously with little kids, it's good because their parents will buy them. But the fact that if you buy 2 dolls, it tallies up to like $200 some, that's not really good on American Girl's part. And then if you buy, and 2 dolls is like not a lot. People who have 2 dolls don't have a lot of dolls compared to some people. And the fact that if they want to buy 2 dolls at the same time, it's $230, that really isn't saying much because these dolls are not worth as much as we have to pay for them. And that's really what I'm really trying to get at. And okay, this is just the dolls that they buy in store or online. This is not talking about the CYOs. The CYOs are $200, which is way insane because these dolls, yeah, I get it, they're like custom made, but like, it's just American Girl brand. They should be $150 and these dolls should be $70 or $60. These dolls do not have to be $115. Do you get it? Do you understand me? And okay, if you were to buy 2 dolls and say the Ireland outfit, your tally would be about $260, almost $300 for 3 items. No, but I really don't think this is gonna be a permanent solution because maybe just like a couple months ago these dolls were $105, which is still a lot, but it's $10 less than $115, which to some people is a lot. And you know, talking about 2012, these dolls were $75, so the prices of these dolls keep fluctuating, and while I do think a permanent solution is around $100, I definitely believe that it could go down or it could go up in future times, because just looking at how inconsistent these dolls' current like prices are, I definitely just think that like these prices aren't here to stay and they can either go up or down, but I do think they will stay to like the 90 to 120 range. Now, this is my next segment here, and I'll be talking about the whole neck ties versus neck strings versus zip ties little fight thing going on. And so basically, American Girl recently switched to, actually not recently, in 2016, which is like 5 years. So for 5 years, American Girl has been manufacturing all their dolls with zip ties instead of neck strings. And if you don't know what the difference is, as you can see in this photo, if you look at her neck and then her hair on the left side of her, you see this little white thing coming out of her neck. And that is because I didn't really do a good job of hiding the neck strings in the photo, but I really don't mind. And these new dolls from Leah Clark Girl of the Year 2016 and up to the present have all come with zip ties in their necks instead of neck strings, which you can see they have come with zip ties. And some people have speculated, oh, it's because they want customizers, they don't want customizers, but people have found a way to get around the zip ties, so I don't really think it was to stop customizers. What I really think they're trying to do is, I think they're thinking about these little kids, because these little kids, like with my older dolls, their necks are really loose. Like looking at my Kanani Akina doll, 2012, her neck is literally about to fall off, and that's because those neck strings are loose, and with zip ties, they stay tight. So I think they made American Girl brand made the change because of the little kids that they have to, that their demographic is. And as much as I don't really care about this, I think that basically it doesn't really matter. Even though customizers much prefer neck strings, that's okay. I prefer zip ties because the photos, you know, you don't have to hide the neck strings, and you know, thinking about American Girl's target demographic, I think it was really understandable as to why they made this change, and I like this change. I think it's nice. I actually much prefer the change because my older dolls, even though it's harder to make them move up and down in stop motions, you can still wiggle around that. I can have Sloane, aka my 2019 Girl of the Year, Blair Wilson doll. She can still move her head up and down and left to right. And, you know, I'm just saying, with stop motions, they're like, oh my god, I can't do anything with these new zip ties. Like, they have to shake their head when nodding. I don't like it. I can make a 3-year-old doll, which might be a lot, but I take care of my dolls, so she's basically new in box condition. I can make her to go up and down and, like, side to side, but not left to right. Well, I can make her do left to right, but I'm talking about side to side, like, you're contemplating something and your head's going left, right, without shaking your head. I don't know if you understand what I'm talking about, but basically, I can get past these zip ties, and I understand why American Girl changed this thing, and I fully support it. And I think that is it for my opinion dump, so I'm going to be talking about American Girl brand itself and my opinion on the whole entire company. Okay, so it's a company. They make these changes for money, and these dolls are expensive even though they aren't expensive to make because American Girl needs profit. To be a company, you can't make less profit, you can't have no profit, you need to have profit. And some companies overprice their items so that they can have more profit than they actually need. And I think this is what American Girl is doing, and as a consumer, I don't really like it, but, you know, thinking from a business perspective, even though I'm not really interested in business, thinking from a business perspective, I totally understand why they do it. And even though I hate it, I understand why they're doing it. And, you know, when I said about, like, the racism thing and, like, their not the target demographic, but, like, the thing with, like, the racist white parents, I kind of understand why they can't have much diversity. They need diversity to uphold their collectors, but they could lose a lot of their children, which is their target demographic, if they do that, if they do the LGBT thing. So, like, from a consumer, from a collector perspective, I really, really want, you know, the diversity, but looking from this is their demographic and this is what the parents are like, I'm like, okay, but, you know, they could lose a lot of their profit. And, okay, I much prefer our generation at times. They have a lot more diversity, they have a lot more face molds, and their sets are higher quality and just have more personality to them. So, personally, like, honestly, our generation and American Girl brand are very similar in different ways, but I prefer our generation. And I know this video wasn't necessarily about our generation, but I wanted to get that out there. And, okay, my opinion on American Girl brand itself. This is basically just a little go-over of what I've talked about. Their things are overpriced, but I understand why they do it. It's all for business. Business. Profit. Profit. They do it for business, they do it for profit, and they probably don't really care about their collectors. They just care about profit. And from a collector's perspective, from a consumer perspective, that's heartbreaking. But if I change my perspective and think about the fact that this is a big company, it's a large company, I realize why they do it, and even if I don't agree, I just have to accept it, I guess. And, you know, the lack of diversity, it's because they need profit. The lack of LGBT representation, profit. It's all about profit and marketing. Now, American Girl says it's for all girls and everything, and obviously girl power, like, yes, we stand, but I really just don't think that they push it enough. And while the historical dolls stories are amazing, they're wonderfully written, I think the Girl of the Year line can be much better done, and the Truly Me line that can have so much more diversity. And you don't even have to worry about LGBT representation, you just have to worry about racial diversity. And yeah, that's really something that American Girl needs to step up, is their racial diversity and just overall story quality, and making sure that the best friend isn't the only diverse character and that they have no character development at all. And, like, this is something that American Girl really needs to work on, but I don't think that they will. Like, it's just kind of the sad truth, because they're a big company, they only really care about profit. I've said that so many times, but I just need to stress it because I feel like people don't really realize that. And as heartbreaking as it is, it's true. And you know, it's just the truth, and American Girl is a big company that only cares about profit, and we need to realize that, and that not all of our dreams will come true. And yeah, American Girl might be a racist company, but maybe we should just stop supporting them then. I would easily switch to our generation. Actually, I wouldn't easily switch, but I would gladly switch if it's for the better. And I think as us, as collectors, need to realize that, and we need to stop just thinking about ourselves, but think about why American Girl won't do this, and the fact that their demographic is that, and there are so many factors. And with that being said, I think this video is supposed to come to an end. It's 41 minutes long, and that is by far the longest video I've ever done. So thank you for all the support, and I really can't believe that I've done this, but I hope you really hope to reconsider some things, and yeah, see you next video. Come on, Serenity, it's starting. Am I late? I literally did not notice. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. Exactly, it means the world to us. Well, we gotta go. See you next video.